everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and today I'm going to be kicking off a reading vlog where I read 3 new release mystery thriller books. There have been so many interesting mystery thriller books that have been released recently and I just could not wait. I wanted to jump into a reading vlog to read a couple new ones. I do this every so often when there's like a batch of thrillers coming out at a time, and I feel like this is going to happen again next month because there's a couple more coming out that I'm excited for. So we may be getting another one of these videos very soon. But I got all of these new books recently and I was so excited for them that I immediately just picked up the camera and started vlogging. So I have actually completed the vlog at this point. This is a future Ashley to the past Ashley that you are getting ready to view, introing you to the video really quickly. So I'll give you a quick synopsis just in like 10 seconds or less of what each of these books are, and then I'll just jump you right into the video because I think this is going to be a long one. So first off, we have The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. This is a story about this woman down on her luck who is planning to go move in temporarily with her brother who is living in this really fancy apartment in Paris. He invites her to come. She goes to visit him, but when she gets there, he's not there and she has to figure out where her brother has gone, and everyone in the building seems like a suspect. Next up, we have Good Rich People by Eliza Jane Brazier. This is a story about this rich married couple who likes to take in people into their guest house who are considered bootstrappers, and then they like to play games with them and try to ruin their lives. And then we have This Might Hurt by Stephanie Roble. This is a story about these two sisters, one of whom goes off to this 6-month wellness retreat in the middle of the woods, which is basically a cult, and the other sister ends up getting a letter kind of luring her out to go visit the retreat. It's an anonymous letter. She doesn't know who sent it, and they're also threatening to reveal a secret that she has from her sister to her sister if she doesn't come herself. I had such an experience with each of these books. There were definitely some high highs, some low lows, some confusing moments. It was a roller coaster pretty much with each of these books. For the most part, I keep it non-spoilery. I think the only book I went into spoilers for was The Paris Apartment for a little bit, but I clearly will have it labeled with a spoiler bar on the screen so you can skip that part if you don't want it. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and send you on back into the past when I was just picking up The Paris Apartment. I've started The Paris Apartment. I've gotten through the first 80 pages or so of the book. I decided to pick this up and start this on some live reading sprints that I did on my channel with Marcy from Marcy Reads and Savannah from Riveting Reads. Those reading sprints are still up on my channel, so you can go watch them if you missed them and you want to catch up on those. But it was so much fun and I'm so glad I chose this book to start. I did launch a poll on my Instagram stories with a couple options for what I should read during those reading sprints, and this one won by a long shot, and I knew a lot of people would be interested in this and I wanted to do this vlog, so it all worked out really perfectly. And this is an exciting book to get to read with other people and talk about as you're starting it. So if you watch those reading sprints, you already have a little sneak peek into my initial impressions of this book. But overall so far, I would say I'm definitely enjoying it and I have pretty solid hopes for how the rest of the story is going to go. In the very beginning, it was a little bit overwhelming because I did forget how Lucy Foley, at least in the guest list, includes so many different characters and so many perspectives into the story. And so as you're just jumping into the book, you're following all these different perspectives and these short little chapters from people on different floors of the building, or the concierge of the whole apartment complex, and then your main character, and then snippets from Ben as well. So it was just a lot to kind of get into right at the beginning. I wasn't really ever sure whose perspective I was reading or like how they fit into the story, and being able to keep up with traits about characters. I kind of found myself wanting to create a character map and create notes and try to remember who is who. But honestly, I thought this might actually be nice to just let myself be confused buy a thriller book again, because I find thrillers to be the most fun when I just try to read them quickly and not overthink them and just let it take me on a ride. So I'm not going to try to overcomplicate this or try to really piece it together. I'm going to just embrace the confusion of not fully understanding who characters are yet. I will say at the 80-page mark, I do have a much better understanding of some characters in the story, and I'm remembering things about them or piecing together who they are. Obviously, you're not supposed to know everything about them. That's the point of it being a mystery thriller, but enough to be able to recognize when a character's name comes up again that I remember things about them. So it has started to get easier as the book has gone on, but I'm really liking this initial setup. I was a little nervous at first that there wasn't going to be enough of an intrigue into the story for me, because when the story begins, Jess, the sister, is arriving at the apartment and Ben is just not there, and she just gets there, thinks it's weird, spends the night, and then the next day she really starts questioning, where is he? He's left his things behind, knocking on neighbors' doors, trying to ask them when's the last time you've seen him, and start piecing it together. So with that being the only thing is like a person is just missing, I was like, is that gonna be enough to really carry the story? But because of how all these different characters have hard feelings towards Ben, or it seems like everyone's like holding back some piece of information, I do think it's gonna be enough to be an interesting story. And I'm just excited to see where it goes. I also enjoy the atmosphere of this one. It's not overwhelmingly atmospheric in the way that the guest list was, but the guest list was so like an island and rainy and isolation, whereas here it's like more upscale Parisian. There's bakeries and pastries, there's people in fancy clothing, and there's just a lot of French language dappled throughout the story. So it's just atmosphere in a different way, but I am definitely liking it. Everything's looking good so far. I'm excited to keep reading more of this. I'm considering picking up the audiobook because I did find out that it is on Scribd, and I think that would be nice for multiple different perspectives and just hearing a full cast. I hope it's a full cast. I think it's a full cast. So I might try that out as well. But yeah, I'm gonna jump back into this one today, read some more of it, and then give you another update when I'm another like 50 or 100 pages into this thing. Popping in for a quick update on Paris apartment before I finish this whole book, because I feel like now that I'm sitting down with it, I'm going to want to fly through the rest of it, and I don't want to miss giving you a midway update. Right now, I'm on page 220, so I really only have like 130 pages left in the story, which is probably going to fly by, because I feel like in the most recent part of the book, I've been in a little bit of a lull, and I feel like we're just getting ready to pick back up steam, and then things are really gonna get going, and I'm gonna be very excited about it. Before I update you on the book, I do want to talk about a couple other things that have been going on this weekend, because I feel like it's been a very busy weekend in the booktube community. So yesterday I watched the No Exit movie on Gabby's Patreon with her Patreon book group of people. We all watched the movie together, which was so much fun. I love doing live watch parties with people on the internet. It's just so fun to get to chat with other people while you're watching the movie, especially if you don't have people in your life who are going to be as excited about it to watch it with you, like in person, then it's really just nice to have a community of people to watch it with. But that was so much fun. I really loved the movie. It was honestly like a 5 out of 5 for me. I feel like that's going to be an uncommon opinion. At the end of the movie watch, I feel like a lot of people were like around a 3 out of 5 rating for it, but I really enjoyed it. I was totally engaged the whole time in the movie. I thought it was a super solid adaptation. It has been a couple of years since I read the book, so I wasn't comparing it one to one. I had forgotten the details around the book. I remember like the beginning and the very end, but I forgot a lot of what happens exactly in the middle, so I wasn't super attached to it has to be the original story and I'm going to be noticing if they change things. I was far enough removed from it that I was just enjoying it as its own experience, and I honestly had such a good time. Obviously, I don't know how I would feel about the movie if I hadn't read the book and like already been attached to and loved the story. But I feel like even if I hadn't read the book, I would have thought it was a pretty solid movie, especially for a Hulu movie. I was just expecting it to potentially be really bad because sometimes Hulu movies are just not good. But I thought this one was pretty good. I had a really good time with it. There were parts that were super intense and I felt my heart racing and I felt like I was holding my breath. There were parts where I had to cover my eyes because I literally couldn't look at the screen because of how intense it was. And that's exactly what I love in a movie watching experience, especially a thriller movie. So the book was a 5 out of 5 for me. The movie was a 5 out of 5 for me. I just love survivor stories, I guess. I'm gonna have to try to look for that more in thrillers. When it's really high stakes, really high action, I'm going to try to pay more attention to picking out some thrillers with the survival trope and see if that is just something that I really tend to enjoy because I am so surprised that I loved the book and the movie just both so much. But yeah, that was my little quick review of the movie. Also, I just wrapped up the live show that we did over on Gwen's channel for the month. It was the February wrap-up live show. I was on there with Beth from Beth's All Booked as well, and it was so much fun. I just finished that up like 30 minutes ago, and it's still gonna be up on her channel, so if you missed it, I will link it down below as well, so you can still go check it out and watch it back. But it was so much fun. We talked about our favorite books and our least favorite books. We played reread, rewrite, or burn challenge with the books that we read, and it was just really fun to hang out with them. So definitely go check out that live show if you missed that. But okay, that is everything I wanted to catch you up on. Now I can catch you up on how I've been feeling about The Paris Apartment. This is kind of a hard book to give updates on because I feel like it's pretty slow paced just because it's a little bit more mystery based where you're trying to figure out what happened to her missing brother. So there's not quite as much happening in terms of reveals or twists. There was one initial twist that did catch me off guard and I found it to be an enjoyable twist. It didn't change things dramatically, but I was like, oh, okay, that was clever writing on Lucy Foley's part. Like I didn't see that coming and that does make things more interesting. So I thought that was a pretty good twist. But then since then I've been in a little bit of a lull where I'm like waiting for the next reveal or the next thing that's going to really make the story get going. Because it feels like we're a little bit just kind of wandering with her still asking the same questions to the same people and getting little in return. So I'm ready for that next breakthrough moment, which I feel like has to be coming soon. But I really don't have many complaints about this one. I'm having a good time with it. It's very much a classic type of thriller that I enjoy. This is very reminiscent on the types of thrillers I would read when I was getting into thrillers for the first time. They're just like cozy to me in a way. It's not like a cozy mystery, but it just feels cozy to me because these are like my comfort reads. So I'm having a really good time with this one. It's not necessarily the most sophisticated, brilliant, most wonderful thriller I've ever read in my life at this moment. Maybe it will be, but it doesn't have to be for me to enjoy it because I'm just getting the comfort out of it that I was looking for. I also did end up picking up the audiobook and I've been listening to the audiobook a little bit as well, and it is very good. I would recommend the audiobook. It's really nice to hear the accents and the French language spoken correctly instead of the way that I mispronounce it in my mind. And it's a full cast, so that's been a good experience as well. But yeah, I'm excited to keep reading the book. Hopefully it really starts picking up steam and I will chat with you when I finish the book. Hello, good morning. I have finished The Paris Apartment. There's so much I could say, and I'm just generally super conflicted about this book. I've seen a lot of positive reviews of this book so far. I know people are loving this. I've had people tell me this is their favorite book of the year and that they think it's going to be the favorite over the whole year, and it's only February. So I know people have really been enjoying this. But after finishing it and talking it through with people and talking about what actually happens in the book, and then I like typed out my review in my little spreadsheet tracker that I keep, I feel like this is kind of a bad book. Like I could totally tear this book to shreds if I just talked about some of the things that happen in this. The ending is just absurd. I like the plot twist. There's this last plot twist, this last reveal. I thought that was really good. I thought that was clever. But I mean in like the last 5 pages, how everything wraps up is just ridiculous. And I was really looking forward to the ending hopefully being really good because I felt like so much of the book was slow. So yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings. I was talking to my friend Lauren from the channel Lauren Love Reads, and she was really looking forward to this because she really loves the guest list. And so she was super hyped for this book. She ended up feeling really similarly to the way I did too, where it's just like, I don't know, my expectations weren't as high for this one as her expectations were for it. So I wasn't as let down by it not being good, but we were both just kind of like, huh, this wasn't very good. But I didn't have a bad time reading it. So that's why I'm conflicted, because it's like this comfort style read. I love reading thrillers like this. I like this writing style. I like the way it feels, but it wasn't a good book. in my opinion. I will talk about spoilers a little bit, but before I do that, I'll just wrap it up, this little segment, non-spoilery, and say, I think I'm gonna give this book like 3 stars. I don't know, because I didn't like hate my experience reading it. If I think too hard about it, it becomes like a 2-star in my mind, and I don't know. I don't wanna be that critical, but yeah, I don't know. So yeah, it's gonna be a 3-star for me, but I will talk about spoilers for a second. I'll put the spoiler bar on the screen and you can skip to where it's not there anymore, and then I'll be talking about the next book that I'm gonna read at that point. But if you don't want spoilers, skip past where you see this bar on the screen, and it's only gonna be a brief segment. So because my opinion is so weird for this book, I did want to talk about it in a spoilery way so that you know what I mean and what I didn't like about the book. So when the book begins, I was a little bit worried, maybe this isn't compelling enough, like a brother's just missing, who she doesn't even have that much of a connection with, and she's trying to figure out what's going on with all these suspicious neighbors in this building. I thought the initial first twist that they're all family members was really good. It caught me off guard. I was like, ooh, that was interesting. That was like a cool way that it was written that I didn't see that coming. So that was fine. But from that point all the way up until you get to the point where she discovers that like secret lounge where it looks like they're selling wine, but really they're selling women. Everything in between that, which is like a significant portion of the novel, I can't really remember like much about what happens in that, and it doesn't really feel like a lot does. It's just so slow moving. She just keeps asking the same questions to everyone. Have you seen Ben? When's the last time you saw Ben? And she's just getting nowhere with all of that. And then meanwhile, you're just like learning all this history, like Mimi was obsessed with Ben, and the mom was also having an affair with Ben. And I did see coming that Camille was hooking up with Dominique, Antoine's wife. I totally saw that coming, so that wasn't a surprise to me. But you're just like learning about the dynamic between all these people, and that wasn't super interesting, and it didn't feel like it was really moving the story forward for me. So that part got really slow, and that was a lot of the middle. So I was really hoping that the ending was going to be great and some kind of interesting twist to make it feel worth it for spending all of that time in the middle. And the twist that the husband is the one who died and Ben is actually alive up in the attic is a good twist, and I did like that. I did have suspicions that he was dead because he was just like gone the whole time, and I'm like, why is he just like gone? I feel like he's probably also dead and something happened to him. But the fact that even the siblings thought that Ben was dead and they didn't realize that their dad was dead, I thought that was like unbelievable probably, but like it was a cool twist. I thought that was interesting. But then everything else that happens in the ending is just like so absurd, with like the way the lounge just dissolves because Jess writes a letter to Sophie and is like, just make this go away. But then the article's going to come out exposing it, and then the police are just like, yeah, I don't know, it just like mysteriously vanished. Jacques just ran away and Antoine just killed himself, and oh, it just all conveniently fell into place. And then the concierge just steals Sophie's whippet and runs away to Nice, France. Mimi gets sent away. And there's just so much that I wondered, like, what was the point of building this up in the story before? Like, why is it so important that Jess has this like secret past in the beginning, that she had this like weird thing happen with her manager who's really skeezy? I don't really know how that ended up impacting the story. And just like the Theo ordeal in general, how she starts working with Theo to help uncover things about her brother, and then they just like end up getting tear gassed and then have sex in a random bathroom. Like, what was that? What was that all about? I don't know. So there's just some things in this book where I'm just like, but I don't want to think about it too hard. I want to just let myself be like, whatever. It was an enjoyable enough experience to read it. But yeah, I don't know. That is like my spoilery opinion on the book. I feel like there's going to be some people come out with like 1-star reviews of this book and be tearing it up, and I'm going to agree with literally everything they say. So I just don't want it to seem like I thought this was an amazing book or I thought it was a terrible book. I don't know. I don't know. It was a weird experience, but okay, that is all. So next up, I'm going to be reading Good Rich People by Eliza Jane Brazier. I was really skeptical to pick this book up because the last book this author came out with got terrible reviews, and so I was like, I don't know about this one, but I've been seeing some good reviews for it. It seems interesting. I really thought the cover was really cool, and that definitely intrigued me. So this is the one I'm picking up next. I started it last night, and I've absolutely no idea what I'm getting myself into with this one. It is so ridiculous, and I don't even know how to get across to you how ridiculous it is, but like these are the most unlikable, unrealistic, most ridiculous characters I have ever read in a thriller. Not in a way that it's bad writing. It's like intentional writing to create these like caricatures who are so obnoxious and ridiculous. Like there's a line this woman says in the beginning, and she's like, oh, there's nothing more embarrassed than being attracted to your husband. husband, and just like a lot of really weird things that these rich people have in their mind. But I guess it's gonna be really satirical. I honestly have no idea. I don't really want to read the full synopsis of this. I kind of want to just be surprised. So far, you have met the husband and the wife, whose names are Lila and Graham. They live in this really nice house that Graham's mom is also living in, or like nearby. I can't really understand the living situation, but they all live like on this property together, and they also have like a guest house. They're really rich, and they will frequently have tenants move into the guest house, and then they play what they call the game with them, where they try to destroy them, drive them crazy. I don't really understand it yet. I don't know if you're supposed to, but I didn't want to read the synopsis. I'm just kind of letting myself be surprised. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like really intriguing to read because it's unlike anything I've really read before. It kind of reminds me so far of that movie The Hunt that came out a couple years ago, which I really ended up liking that movie. So I'm feeling kind of hopeful about this, but you really have to just be okay with knowing this is an absolutely capital R ridiculous book. And that's something that I'm okay with, at least now, but I have no idea how this is going to go. I feel like it's either going to be amazing or it's going to be really annoying. So yeah, I don't know. I'm only like 50 pages in so far, but I do feel like I'm gonna fly through it because it's just so interesting to read. So I'm gonna be reading more of this one this evening, and then I'll check back in with you as I get further in the book. Hello, a new filming location today in my little reading nook area. It's probably gonna be a little louder over here because we're a little closer to the street, but I wanted to sit here in the beautiful sun. So I read another good chunk of Good Rich People. I am about halfway through the book now, and I've made it to page 200. And I'm just really having a wonderful time with this book. It just feels so unique and fresh and not like every other thriller book I typically read because the characters are just so out there. And honestly, this is gonna sound probably a little wild, but this book is what I wish Finlay Donovan is Killing It would have been. I am like one of the very few people in the world who didn't really like Finlay Donovan is Killing It. It was just a little too silly for me, but this really gives off similar vibes with it being like a dark comedy, except it's actually dark and not just like overly funny and goofy. It's like terrible people who it's funny to read about because it's so over the top. So I'm still really enjoying this. Totally different book, but this also reminds me of Pretty Things by Janelle Brown because that book is about this like rich influencer, and then you get a second perspective in that book of just a regular schmegular person, and they go back and forth. You'll read scenes twice, but from the other's perspective, and this book does that as well, where you read things in one person's perspective and then you go back in the story and read up to that point again, but from the other person's perspective, and revealing things that you didn't realize were happening along the way. There's a lot of things about this book that I think a lot of people aren't gonna like. I think that's gonna be one of them too. I think people are probably gonna complain that you read the same scenes over and over but from different perspectives, but I like it in that structure because you're learning things and you're like rewinding the tape and seeing things from a different light, which I think is interesting. And the way things are escalating in this book, things are just getting worse and worse, and the characters are just digging themselves a deeper and deeper hole. So this is the kind of stories I like, but I feel like this is gonna be one that I end up really enjoying and many people hate. But I don't know, I'm only halfway through, so the ending half still could go terribly. I'm really not sure where it's going at this point or how it's going to wrap up or what the message of the book is going to be. It's going to be important to me that this book does have a solid message just because of how satirical, ridiculous, and over the top it is. I do want it to be like saying something about class differences. I'm curious to see who's going to come out on top at the end of the story, and I'm just excited to see how it all plays out. Hello. So I finished Good Rich People last night, and I just had a lot of feelings. This kind of had a similar trajectory as The Paris Apartment did for me in terms of my reading experience with the book, where I was having such a good time, and then right at the end I'm just like, was this a satisfying book? What the heck? So I knew, like it usually happens when I finish a book at night in bed, that I would wake up and either kind of forget things or feel kind of like it was a fever dream. So I took a couple notes of my initial reaction to the ending of good rich people. And this is what my notes say. What to say? The ending felt underwhelming, and that's probably gonna be my major point for the book, is like some crazy shit happens, but not really. You know, like not in like a fun twist reveals type way, just in the fact that this was set up as like a cat and mouse type book, and that just leads to a little bit of a chaos action blow up at the end, but not really in the way that like your mind is blown because there's some kind of twist and reveal. And then the other thing too is, what was the point of this book? I was really hoping this book was going to have some kind of message behind it, because I mean, it's clearly like over the top ridiculous, these satirical characters, you're talking about class differences. Where are we going with this? What's the point? Because it reminded me of things like that movie The Hunt, which that movie I felt like had a thing to say, you know? I don't feel like this book had much more to say other than money doesn't buy happiness, which like, duh, I've heard that and read that so many times. So I kind of just wish I would have gotten something else out of the book, some kind of interesting examination on class differences. I was saying in the clip before, like I didn't know who was going to come out on top, and I thought that would be interesting, but the way it resolves and the one that comes out on top, it doesn't say anything to me. Maybe it says things to other people, maybe other people are getting interesting messages from this book, but I don't feel like I got anything interesting and new from the message of this book. But what I did get something interesting and new from this book was just the experience reading it. I just think it's an interesting book. It's a unique thriller. It goes like full pedal to the metal on just dark comedy, and I love that. So I really liked just the style of this book. My experience reading was super fun, and I really liked that this book wasn't afraid to be dark. It just had some really dark things. At one point there's like a bag of human hands, feet, and teeth. That was just intense, and so I love that it really went there. There's also like the gardens that are at the estate, and they're like the 9 rings of hell, and so I just love how this book felt. I thought the writing choices were really interesting. I thought the dialogue was really interesting. I thought the inner monologue was super interesting. Like, it was just an interesting book to read. But at the end, I was just left going, what was the point? And I guess all books don't have to have like a point, but I wanted this to have a stronger point at the end of it. But honestly, that's like my only complaint with the book. I mean, I had a great time. I thought it was just a really fun story. It was fun characters to follow. It was weird. It was dark. It was gross. It was funny. It was annoying. It just evoked so many emotions from me while reading it. So I think I'm gonna end up giving this one a 4-star, just because it didn't really do much for me with the ending, but it was just a really fun time, and I would recommend this book. But I feel like a lot of people aren't gonna like it. I feel like this is one of those thrillers that I really like, and then everyone's like, oh my gosh, Ashley, you have such weird thriller taste. Like, why do you like that book? It was trash. So go in knowing it's ridiculous, it's over the top, it's written ridiculous. This is not like a realistic story in any sense. Yeah, I don't know how else to warn you other than to say that, but I had a really fun time with it, and I'm really glad that I read it. So next up, I'm going to be reading This Might Hurt by Stephanie Roble. The only thing I know about this is that it has something to do with a cult. I really don't remember the synopsis. I remember reading the synopsis when I first heard about this book, but I typically like to not revisit that again. Like, if I read the synopsis of a book and I'm interested in any way, and I think I'm actually gonna wanna read it, I will add it to like my wish list, or like add it to my TBR list, acquire the book, and not read the synopsis again, because I like to forget what it's about, and then I'm like, past me thought I would enjoy it, but I don't remember the story I'm jumping into, so I'm going to be more surprised. That's how I like to experience thrillers nowadays. So I don't really remember much about this. I'll tell you more about the actual story once I get started in the book and actually can piece together a summary. But I did make the mistake last night of looking at the Goodreads reviews for this book, just out of curiosity before I got started, and they're not very good. I feel like it's mostly like 2 and 3 stars. So I'm a little bit worried this one might not be the best one. Honestly, maybe it's good that I'm tempering my expectations. I also know this author came out with a book called Darling Rose Gold in the past couple of years that a lot of people really liked, so maybe it's just like people really like that one and then they're more disappointed with the next book. I don't know, but I did not read Darling Rose Gold because I've just heard the Gypsy Rose story a lot and I just didn't really care to read a book about it. But yeah, I'm gonna jump into this one today. I'll let you know what it's about as soon as I figure it out myself. So I've gotten started on This Might Hurt. I am currently like 100 pages into this story. If you keep up with me on Instagram and you see my Instagram stories, you've probably already seen my initial reaction to this. I had a couple people messaging me because it was a stark reaction, because only 30 pages into this book, I was already pretty bored. So I think I've initially panicked a lot of people because this is a book that has been highly anticipated by a lot of people, and so far it's not looking good. So it turns out that what this story is about is these 2 sisters. One of the sisters decides to go off to the 6-month retreat where it's basically like a cult. It's just like a wellness retreat where you learn how to improve improve your life, and they have like strange methods, kind of in like a Nine Perfect Strangers by Leah Moriarty type vibe. The 6-month period has passed. Her sister hasn't returned yet. She hasn't really heard from her sister. And then she gets this email that is ominously asking her to come out to this area. And it's like instructions to get out there. I don't even remember what the note said. It wasn't super remarkable. Oh, but it also threatens to reveal the secret that she's been keeping from her sister. So the two sisters are Natalie and Kit. Natalie is your main character, the one who is going out there, and Kit is the character who has been out at this retreat area. Natalie, when she gets the email, it's like also threatening, if you don't tell your sister what you did, we're gonna tell her. And so you know there's like this secret that she's keeping from her sister, and that's the whole book so far. So 100 pages in, she's gone, she's out at this area to meet her sister, and she has yet to actually see her sister. They all say she works there now, and she just hasn't really been able to find her. So that's the setup of the book. It really reminds me of The Project by Courtney Summers, which I also didn't really care for that much, and I feel like I'm not really going to end up enjoying this one either. It feels more like a literary fiction the way it's written. It's just very slow. Absolutely nothing is happening. The character is really annoying to follow because at the beginning, the main character Natalie is like this big shot in the marketing world, and I work in the corporate world, so like I don't like to read about characters in the corporate world because it's just too close to home, and like I don't know, it's just like I don't want to read what I live in that way, so I really don't like that. And she's over the top, like girl bossed her way to the sun type of character. And you also get flashbacks of their childhood in this, and they had a very abusive father who they only referred to as sir, and that just makes me cringe every time I have to read it. I really am finding I do not like to read about abusive men in stories. I mean, who does like to read about abusive men, I guess, but like it's becoming a trigger for me, and it's becoming something that I don't want to read. So as soon as I see that in a synopsis, I'm like, I'm out of that one. I'll let you guys read it. Tell me if it's good or not. I don't care. I will not be picking that one up. But this one, I had no indication that it was going to involve even flashbacks from their childhood, but especially a super abusive father, and I'm just not liking that. So I don't know, I'm gonna keep trying to give this one a shot. I'm gonna try to get a little further into the book. I'm doing some reading sprints on my channel tonight, so I'm probably going to read this one during that, and we'll see how it goes. Either the story picks up, or I honestly might decide to DNF this one just because I don't want to read something that's like triggering me. So I don't know, we'll see how it goes. I'll talk to you after the sprints and see where I'm at with this book. Okay, hello. I'm currently doing some live reading sprints right now, but I'm in the middle of reading this book. Things have taken such a turn, and I need to update about it right this very second. So I know in the last clip I was saying that I wasn't really enjoying this book, but literally like in the next 2 pages that I read after that, as soon as I started these sprints and started reading in the book again, it got way more interesting. We got a perspective shift, and you start to see I don't feel like this is really a spoiler. It's literally just like about the format of the book, but you go back in time and see the sister's experience when she gets to this retreat compound area and see that all back from the beginning. And so I feel like that's a much more interesting story than following the other sister who's just like wandering her way there and the flashbacks and everything. But something just happened, and I don't know if I've been reading this book wrong and if I'm a dumbass or if this was meant to be a twist. And I don't know who to talk about this with because I don't know anybody who has read this book yet, but I'm gonna lose my mind because I'm like, have I been reading this book wrong the whole time and that's why I didn't like it? Or was it purposefully written to confuse you about a certain thing? And I can't tell if what was just revealed was a reveal or if I'm just dumb and I'm just figuring it out and I'm losing my mind. And it's like, if that was meant to be a twist or reveal, like, yeah, you got me. I didn't see that coming, but it doesn't really do much to make the story much more interesting, I guess. I don't know. It was just so wild. I had to flip back to the beginning and be like, am I losing my mind here? Or yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I'll post on like Instagram and see if anyone has read this that I can ask them or not yet. But I am definitely more intrigued with the story at this point. We're getting past all the things that I didn't like about it. We're getting less time with that abusive father in the story who I did not want to read about anymore. So that's been nice. And it's really been cool to see what's going on at the actual retreat and the people there and to learn about the therapy methods and what actually goes on. That is the actual compelling part of this book. So I think the first 100 pages maybe just weren't very good, and hopefully the rest of the book's going to stay this good from now on. But yeah, I'm gonna keep reading this on my reading sprints. I'm gonna see if anyone on Instagram can talk about this book with me so I can figure out if I'm losing my mind or not, and we'll see how it's going when I check in again. So I just finished This Might Hurt, and I just didn't really like this book. I think the best way I can describe it is to just say it was really boring to me. I just didn't feel excited. This didn't feel like I was reading a thriller. It felt like I was just reading a literary story that got like kind of dark at the end and like the last 20 pages. And the story also just wraps up really abruptly, like out of nowhere. It just all of a sudden you learn some things and then boom, the story's over, and it ends on like not an ambiguous note, but like the story doesn't like really end. It's just like you get this statement and you know what's going to happen next based off of what you learned in like the recent 20 pages. So I don't know, that was kind of weird, but yeah, this one just wasn't for me. I keep trying these cult books and they're just not giving what I want them to give. When I hear that a book is about a cult, there's like a certain thing that I expect in it, and I feel like I never get that from these books. But I don't know, this one in general, it was just really slow, really boring. I did end up chatting on Instagram with someone who was on my live sprints and also was reading this book, so shout out to Tara for following through and being able to chat about this book with me. And we've come to the conclusion that we think this was intended to be a twist, what ends up happening in like the middle of the book. But is it a good twist? Is it an exciting twist? Or is it just really annoying? I think the more I think about it, the more I'm just annoyed by it, because it really just makes everything you read really confusing. And then it kind of puts you in this place where you realize you haven't really been getting much of a story. By the end of the book, I feel like I didn't really know the characters enough or care about them enough, or I just felt like I didn't really get a story out of this. I don't know. It just feels so weird. I feel so unsatisfied after reading this. It's for sure not going to be memorable at all. I'm sure I'm going to forget like everything about it in the next week or so. But yeah, it was just really disappointing, really unfortunate. I know a lot of people have been anticipating this one, so I guess just to help you decide if it's something you still eagerly want to pick up or not. I don't know. Like, I really just didn't like it, and it's hard for me to look for things and try to be like impartial and say who I think is going to enjoy this book or what types of stories you might have enjoyed, because I think it was just so boring. It was so boring. So I don't know. That's all I can say is warn you that I was very bored with this. I hope other people are able to enjoy it, since I know so many people are excited about this one. If you do enjoy it, I'm so happy that you did. It just did not work for me, and I'm gonna end up giving this a 2-star. It's not so bad that I like want to give it a 1-star. I rarely give 1 stars, so I'm gonna give it a 2-star. Didn't really work for me. It's a bummer, but that's just what it is. So that is a wrap on this reading vlog. It was quite the journey. We had some good moments, we had some bad moments, but overall it was just such a fun time. I love doing just dedicated thriller vlogs just because they're the most fun to read, they're the most fun to talk about for me, and each of these books really gave me so much to talk about and took me on such a wild ride through this vlog, so they were really a good selection for the video. But to sum it all up, a quick summary of how this reading vlog went. The Paris Apartment was not the best book, but it was a fun time, so I ended up giving it a 3-star rating. Good Rich People was a sinister, dark comedy that I had such a good time with, and I ended up giving it a 4-star rating. And then This Might Hurt was just not very good in my opinion, and I ended up giving it a 2-star rating. But I'm still glad that I read each of these books. They were some of my most anticipated books of the year, so I'm glad that I got to experience the books. I'm excited to get to talk about them with other people. I really appreciated everyone that has been talking with me about these books as I've been reading them and posting on Instagram or talking about them in my reading sprints. It's just so much fun to get to chat with other people while you're reading thrillers and getting through the plot twists and revealing things and encountering disappointments sometimes. But the best part is just getting to chat about it with other people. So if you have read any of these books, if you have any opinions you want to share, definitely leave me a comment down below and I will be down there chatting with you. If you've made it to the end of the video and you want to leave an emoji in the comments to show that you made it to the end, or you just don't know what else to comment and you want to support my channel, today's emoji is going to be a rabbit emoji because there are some rabbits in this book. Not a huge part of the story, but I just really liked that scene, and it was one of the weird, quirky scenes that I really enjoyed in this book. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!